All right, we are live right now on TikTok, YouTube, and X/Twitter on a Thursday night here as we track the tropics, particularly Tropical Storm Erin, plus a new area of interest, new-ish, in the Southwest Gulf that could potentially strengthen into a tropical depression or a tropical storm before the week's end. So two different areas to talk about when it comes to tropical activity. We'll wait just a couple of minutes for a few more people to jump on, and then we'll go ahead and get rolling with all of this. Hopefully your Thursday night is going well as we get ready to close out the work week. One more day left here in the week, and then it is the weekend again. And this weekend, all eyes, of course, are going to be on Tropical Storm Erin. Eventually, Hurricane Erin. In fact, we're right on the cusp of getting up to hurricane status. Also talking about that little area of interest in the Southwest Gulf and the potential development there. There is a chance it could bring some heavy rainfall across parts of southern Texas, so we'll look at some of the data with that. As always, as you jump on and watch the live stream, comment where you're watching from and any weather questions that you have. And as I see those comments, I will do my very best to answer some of them. So happy Thursday night again, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great evening and had a great week so far. Just a few more seconds here before we get started and start really diving into some of the data here, particularly with Erin. I think that's what we're going to start, and then we'll kind of end up working our way back to the west, to the southwest, across the Gulf, where we have that convection thunderstorm activity and low pressure that is trying to form, although a closed low has yet to develop with that area down in the Southwest Gulf just yet. So a few of you are watching. We'll wait maybe another second here for a couple more to jump on. Hello from North Carolina, Freedom 28. Hopefully your Thursday night's going well. Thanks for watching. How's it looking for Long Island? Little to no impacts right now expected for Long Island from Erin, aside from maybe some higher waves, and we'll look at some of the wave height potential here heading into next week across the Northeast. Some big waves are possible, which is probably not completely unfamiliar to you during the summertime when tropical systems pass to the east. But confidence here still tonight is pretty good that Erin is going to curve out to sea and should not make landfall in the U.S. But as we gather more data here, it does look like some of the Leeward Islands going to be at play for some heavy rain, wind, some flooding. Also Puerto Rico at play here for some heavy rain and flooding. So we'll look at that in just a second. I think we have a good number of you who are now watching the live stream and have jumped on. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so big picture here once again as we look at the imagery here, or satellite across the Atlantic basin. You can see obviously what sticks out is a pretty healthy looking tropical storm Erin now. It is a strong tropical storm. It has gained some strength throughout the day today, and the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center does put it right on the cusp of becoming a hurricane. Winds are just below the criteria to get hurricane status with Erin, but regardless, a very strong looking tropical storm. And then as we look back to the west here a little bit into the Gulf, you can see what we're calling 98L. It's an area of showers and thunderstorms and disturbed weather, a tropical wave that we have there. Not looking very organized or healthy tonight, but there is a low that's trying to form, a center that's trying to form around this one. And through the day tomorrow, this could potentially strengthen up to a tropical depression or maybe even a tropical storm before it moves inland, either working in through northern Mexico or across southern Texas. So those are the two spots to watch on the map right now. Erin, and then our other area of disturbed weather and tropical wave across the Southwest Gulf. Probably a little bit more attention when it comes to Erin, and rightfully so, because it is still expected to become a major hurricane out there. Still looks like it is headed due west tonight. This is the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. And the cone, a couple of changes here. This is the 8 p.m. intermediate advisory, maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, so we're just below hurricane status. And the movement has really slowed down a little bit now, down to about 17 miles per hour, still moving pretty much directly to the west, but we are expecting that turn up to the north, so maybe a little more west-northwest movement here perhaps with the next advisory. Check out in yellow, and it might be a little small to see on your screen, but I'll circle it just so you get a better picture. Those are the Leeward Islands, the far northernmost Leeward Islands, and there are now tropical storm watches in effect as we anticipate at least the possibility of some tropical storm force winds creeping into the northern Leeward Islands as we get into this weekend, especially on Saturday before conditions start to improve on Sunday. And Puerto Rico possibly at play for some tropical storm force winds, especially towards the northeast side of the island. You'll see why in just a second. But sticking with the bigger picture for a moment, at least through tonight, we can expect gradual strengthening up to hurricane status, and it does look like by tomorrow, and tomorrow afternoon especially, we will have Hurricane Aaron on our hands. After that, as we get towards Sunday and Aaron makes kind of a glancing blow to the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico, there's going to be a little wind shear that tries to creep in from the west-northwest, and that could perhaps stop some of the forward motion of strengthening with Aaron and maybe delay some rapid intensification. But still, hurricane status expected to continue through Sunday before we get to major hurricane status sometime late Sunday into Monday. Category 3 Hurricane Aaron expected certainly by Monday afternoon as it makes a turn to the north here. By Tuesday afternoon, it is heading almost due north completely and likely passes somewhere between the east coast of the U.S. and Bermuda, bringing big waves likely from the east coast of Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, northward into the northeast as well. So that's a big picture view at the latest track and advisory as of the 8 p.m. AST intermediate advisory on Hurricane Aaron. Let's take you over to a closer look at the infrared satellite here, and we can pick out some of the features. Obviously a pretty healthy looking storm, and some of the thunderstorm activity that you're seeing towards the center is indicative of gradual strengthening that continues. Aaron is heading westward into warmer sea surface temperatures and an environment that is marginally wind shear at this point. So those two things mean strengthening is likely to continue. Again, now through the next couple of days, there are some question marks heading into the weekend, how much wind shear will come into play, but regardless, strengthening into a hurricane expected overnight tonight into tomorrow. We're right on the cusp of getting a hurricane even tonight with winds just below criteria there. Showers, thunderstorms with some of these spiraling bands, especially on the north side of Aaron, and then those deep towers around the center. Obviously, an eye has not popped out just yet, but as we get up to hurricane status and Aaron becomes a little better organized, tomorrow at some point, we may see the center trying to clear out a little bit more and maybe get an eye in there. Let's talk about the track, because there's been a lot of questions as to how soon this turns to the north, and obviously if any impacts are going to be felt across the east coast of the U.S. And still tonight, there is high confidence that this will not be a U.S. storm, but it is passing somewhat uncomfortably close, especially for the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico. So mainland U.S. storm, no, but Puerto Rico could come out to play here eventually, and we'll look at some high resolution data in just a second as we get some of the hurricane models up and running and the latest runs pulled in. But once again, this is a super ensemble member. So what we're looking at here are the ensembles for several different computer models, the EPS, the GEFS, the UK Met, and the CMC. If you're not familiar with those terms, don't need to focus in too much on that. Let me kind of guide you through this and what you're looking at. So notice as we put this into motion and start to go through time over the next couple of days, so now through about Saturday here, you have all of the ensemble members and the mean line of those ensembles, so kind of the median, the mean line in there, tightly clustered together, which means there's high confidence in the track, at least through the next couple of days. Not expecting this thing to take any kind of bizarre swings and start heading directly towards Puerto Rico or the northern Virgin Islands there. There's pretty good confidence this will start to turn a little to the north here over the next probably 12 to 24 hours. So it'll be on a west-northwest track instead of directly west. But it is still close enough by that it could bring in some of those tropical storm force winds potentially to the northern Leeward Islands as well as Puerto Rico, hence why we have that tropical storm watch that's in effect. But the ensemble members and their mean lines tightly clustered together now through the weekend, so there's very good confidence in the track of where Erin will go through about Saturday or Sunday. But look at what happens after that as we get into early next week. The ensemble members start to diverge a little bit, meaning there's less agreement in the exact track of where Erin will go. Now, that's not unusual because we're getting beyond 4 to 5 days out now as we get towards early next week. So we're talking, 3-4 days out. It's not unusual to start seeing a little bit more spread on the ensemble members. But here's the good news. Notice each of those ensemble members in all the computer models still show that turn to the north and takes Erin out to sea as it recurves away from the US. Now, the closest model to the east coast of the US, particularly Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, looks like tonight it is the GEFS. And even then, it is a glancing blow to the east, uncomfortably close, yes, but every piece of data that we have here suggests that Erin will turn northward and then recurve back out to sea before making any kind of landfall along the mainland of the east coast of the US. So that's good news, and then it's out of our way and no longer a problem by the end of next week. There's not really one single ensemble member here except for this outlier that brings it up to landfall along the east coast, and that would be in the EPS, and it's just one. So the probability there, as we look at these ensembles and determine probabilities, is extremely low for any kind of direct hit to the US. But still, again, you can see coming into play here are the northmost Leeward Islands and also Puerto Rico, which will be sort of close to the southern side of Erin as it heads north of both of those spots. So let's kind of look here a little closer at the hurricane models themselves with a little higher resolution. And what you're looking at now is the HWRF computer model. And of course, just like any computer model, it has its bias, right? So it isn't going to output exactly what's going to happen. But now that we're starting to get a little closer to when impacts could be possible across spots like Puerto Rico and the northern Leeward Islands here, I think we can start using some of the higher resolution data. So look at what the HRF is thinking here over the next 12 to 24 hours. So this takes us out about a day or so from now. So this is at 21Z on Friday. We have a 999 millibar low pressure system here, potentially Hurricane Erin. It is in its beginning stages still, once it becomes a hurricane, of getting organized. Remember, it has to go all the way from Category 1 to Category 3. And because we're expecting Erin to run at a little more wind shear, especially getting to this weekend, rapid intensification not likely, but some gradual intensification is possible. And then notice the timestamp. This is early Saturday morning now. A 987 low, so a better looking, more organized hurricane. And then you're going to start to see, as we get towards Sunday here, some landmarks, and I'll pull the screen a little closer for you to see it. So here is now at 21Z on Saturday. So this is Saturday afternoon, and I'll circle. These are the northern Leeward Islands, which you can see there. And here's Puerto Rico over here. And so in this particular scenario, we're talking about tropical storm force winds, heavy amounts of rain, coming into the northern Leeward Islands and also the northeast part of the island of Puerto Rico between Saturday and Sunday night. So notice those spirally bands, those outer bands really working through the northeast part of the island here on Sunday. This is now early Sunday morning. You do have some heavy rain, some thunderstorm activity. Again, likely some tropical storm force winds in this particular scenario across the northeast part of the island of Puerto Rico. And then obviously you have the northern Leeward Islands there at play. But by and large, the center and the eye of what will then be Hurricane Erin stays pretty far north of the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico, but you do get some of those spirally bands of bad weather Sunday into Monday, and possibly a few isolated spots where there could be some tropical storm force winds. Beyond then, here's Monday. As Erin starts to jog to the north, we have a 943 millibar strong, likely major Hurricane Erin on our hands. Notice the eye is well organized. You do have intense hurricane force winds right in the eye wall of the storm by Monday, but it's out to sea and it's making its turn up to the north before it impacts the east coast of the U.S. and likely passes between Bermuda and the east coast of the U.S. there. So that's one computer model's idea of what could happen. I want to show you another one here. And again, it shows, this is the HAFS-A run, and it shows kind of a similar type scenario, which is, and this one maybe is even a little further north, the northern Leeward Islands getting in on tropical storm force winds, heavy amounts of rain, some thunderstorm activity, certainly some banding taking place. Here's Puerto Rico. Also, again, it's sort of the northeast spot of the island that we'd be most concerned about with some of the recent data in terms of getting in on some of those isolated tropical storm force wind gusts, heavy rain, storm surge really shouldn't be a concern. And then as Erin heads northward, you get more intensification up to major hurricane status late Sunday into Monday as it starts its journey back out into the open sea. So landfall with this may not come anywhere, but still a couple of spots that may take a glancing blow, the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico, especially the northeast part of the island, that would be more susceptible than others. But for right now, I would say things are actually looking pretty good in terms of escaping major impacts from most spots here from Erin, at least the way that data looks tonight. I know I haven't looked at comments here, but I will do that now and kind of take a look and see if you guys have any questions that you may want to ask. And we've just been looking over Erin so far. We haven't talked about the interest yet in the Southwest Gulf yet, but we will in just a second. Is Tennessee going to be affected? No, Tennessee will not be affected by Erin. A question about South Carolina. The only impacts right now South Carolina should feel from Erin are likely going to be some of those bigger swells along the coastline and some waves. Not expecting any significant tropical storm force winds or hurricanes at all across the east coast of the U.S. anywhere at this point. East Coast of North Carolina looking all right. Yeah, for right now, the East Coast of North Carolina looks good. Same deal. Some bigger swells possible. I know sometimes we get tropical systems passing off the coast of the Carolinas. It can lead to some concerns with a little flooding along the coastline. That definitely can't be ruled out. Too soon to say for sure along the south coast of Massachusetts, but it does look like this one will miss New England. But again, some bigger waves are possible. A little coastal erosion can't be ruled out. Same thing with Maryland. Some bigger swells along the coastline here, especially towards the middle of next week. A little coastal erosion also would be possible in there too. And Jersey should be good as well. So It's generally good news with Aaron tonight. Here are the headlines from the National Hurricane Center, and you can read them with me. Heavy rainfall across the northernmost Leeward Islands, again, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, as well as southern and especially eastern Puerto Rico here, may lead to isolated instances of flooding. Notice the verbiage they're using. It isn't particularly concerning. Some isolated flooding along with landslides or some mudslides typical across some of the mountain terrain there where we get heavy rain. Tropical storm conditions are possible across the northern Leeward Islands where tropical storm watch is in effect as the core of Aaron passes to the north. Tropical storm conditions could also occur. This is exactly what I was saying a few minutes ago across the northern part of the Virgin Islands and maybe Puerto Rico where additional watches could come into play. But the core part of Aaron will pass north of the island of Puerto Rico. And if you're somebody who likes probabilities and statistics, this is the latest map that shows the tropical storm force winds or the probability of tropical storm force winds at any given point. And Puerto Rico right now, depends on where you are on the island, but most of the island center now between about 10 and 30% chance of tropical storm force winds in the island, and even lower chances of hurricane force winds, about less than 5% for most of the island of Puerto Rico, and maybe a few isolated spots here in the far northeast corner right at that 5% margin. But this is not a super concerning situation for Puerto Rico. This is not Maria all over again. The core of the storm is going to pass to the north. And by the way, if you were wondering for the U.S. where those probabilities stand with tropical storm force winds, right now, too early to say for sure. As the National Hurricane Center cone only goes out 5 days, but I would say the probability of any spot along the east coast of the U.S., especially east coast of Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, receiving tropical storm force winds from Aaron, very low. So it is mostly a good news situation here tonight when it comes to Aaron. Let's take a peek at what else is happening out in the tropics. I want to bring you back over to a wider view of the Atlantic Basin here for just a second. And tighten up the microphone. So obviously we talked about what's happening with Aaron, but I want to show you also what's taking place down here in the southwest corner of the Gulf. Notice some higher thunderstorm tops that we saw throughout the afternoon today, especially with some of the daytime heating. Those have kind of fallen apart, collapsed tonight with our Invest 98L here in the southwest Gulf. We've lost some daytime heating, but I think tomorrow you'll start to see some reinvigoration of thunderstorm activity. The system is trying to get better organized, and it is in an environment where it's conducive, at least for a little organization. So according to the National Hurricane Center, remember last night this was only at about 30%. So they've increased the possibility of tropical development with our system down here in the southwest Gulf up to 50%. So now we're at a 50% chance of development. And as we look at a closer peek at the infrared satellite here, this is zoomed in a little closer, and for some reference, this is near Brownsville, Texas, and then this is Mexico and here. You can actually see, if you look pretty closely, low pressure that's trying to form and get better organized, the counterclockwise swirl, and then you have thunderstorms that have been a little more numerous here on the north side of this tropical wave that's trying to get organized. I do think it's possible we run into a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow. But keep in mind, this is moving pretty quickly to the northwest, and so time is extremely limited, as it sometimes is with these systems in the southwest Gulf. Time is the biggest enemy. If it can stay out over sea for a little longer tomorrow, it is certainly possible we get up to tropical depression, maybe tropical storm status. Could see tropical storm watches may be issued here somewhere along the far southeast part of Texas. So from roughly, Corpus Christi down through about Brownsville and then getting into northern Mexico. The data here with 98L does show the possibility of, again, some development, but where does it head? It likely moves onshore by Friday, the Friday time frame. somewhere between far northern Mexico, northeast Mexico here, and southeast Texas, with a mean line centered around Brownsville. What would be the impacts from this? Likely a lot of heavy rain, thunderstorms, and maybe some flooding concerns. This is a look at the 18Z HWRF run for Invest 98L. Again, that tropical wave in the Southwest Gulf. Not too aggressive, and most of the data isn't here. I'll pull this a little closer for you to see. Most of the data is not aggressive. You know, this would maybe be a tropical depression. There's actually where it thinks the low would be centered, 913. Or excuse me, 1013, not 913. 1013 low by Friday, by tomorrow morning. And then again, a quick hitting round of showers and thunderstorms across southern Texas from this as it starts to move onshore. You could get a few bands that try to work in, some banding that may take place across southern Texas. Maybe a little isolated flooding, but this is a pretty quick mover. And then it's all but dissipated as we get into Saturday. So this is something that would probably take place tomorrow. It would happen really quickly if we were to get some development into a quick tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm. And then as soon as it moves onshore, it'll fall apart, dissipate, really disorganized. The more time this little wave spends out over the Southwest Gulf, the better chance that it has of becoming organized and becoming a tropical depression. So maybe not a ton of rain, yeah, for Corpus Christi. I think this would be more of a Brownsville type scenario. Let's pull, just for the sake of it, the HAFS-A, and really similar type situation. Whatever forms will likely move onshore, whether that be a tropical depression or tropical storm, somewhere in the vicinity of far northern Mexico or extreme southern Texas. If it can get a little organized, then you may have, of course, some of that spirally banding, the outer bands that may try to work in just a little further to the north. But we'll see how it plays out. More than likely, this isn't going to be anything significant or major that we need to worry about. But again, those things kind of happen quickly. A question of where do they think Hurricane Erin will hit? Right now, it looks like any impacts for the next 48 hours this weekend should be confined to the northern Leeward Islands in terms of some heavy rain and tropical storm force winds. Puerto Rico could come into play here in terms of getting some of the southernmost wind and perhaps some of the banding as we get into Sunday afternoon and Sunday night, getting close to tropical storm force winds across the northeast part of the island, but this won't be a direct hit. If anything, it'll be some rain and some thunderstorms that bring in a couple inches, maybe 4 to 6 inches as you get some downsloping there across the island. Which obviously would likely lead to a little bit of a flash flooding concern. So that's what's happening out in the tropics. Obviously, we don't want Erin to impact land. And right now, this is going to be a situation where we continue to watch and wait across the northern parts here of the Leeward Islands and then also Puerto Rico. But by and large, it looks like Erin will pass. The core of Erin is going to pass north of both of those places and also pass east of the east coast of the mainland U.S. out to sea as it turns up to the north. And, you know, we've talked a lot about this here the past several days, the steering current with Erin. It all has to do with a couple of different features. One of those is our Bermuda High and a trough that's going to be digging in here across the northeast. That trough breaks apart our Bermuda High. So then we'll have high pressure likely across the center of the country and out across the open Atlantic as well. And so right now, Aaron's just kind of following along the clockwise flow of our high pressure system. When it starts to break apart a little bit as this trough swings in from the northwest, that will be an escape path for Aaron to take north. And so there's high confidence in how that trough plays out and the northward turn before Aaron moves ashore to places like Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas. So it's good news that right now, at least, Aaron is not expected to make landfall anywhere. I think everyone was kind of holding their breath watching this one as it was moving across the Atlantic here the past couple of days, but the forecast and those ensembles that I showed you are confident that this will not make landfall, especially along the mainland U.S. And a glancing blow to the north for Puerto Rico and the northern Leeward Islands with some heavy rain possible and maybe a few isolated tropical storm force gusts heading into this weekend. All right, let's talk for a second about what's happening with severe weather, because things are starting to develop and fire up here across the northern plains. It is a slight risk day. That is a risk level 2 out of 5 for the remainder of tonight, as that trough that's going to be helping to make Aaron make that northward turn out to sea is now impacting parts of the northern plains and into Canada. And at the surface, there's a cold front moving through. That cold front, especially along and just ahead of that cold front, is firing off some severe weather tonight. So far, we haven't seen a lot in the way of shower and thunderstorm activity or severe weather across the Dakotas, northern parts of North Dakota underneath the slight risk, eastern North Dakota underneath the slight risk as well, and parts of northern Minnesota. There's been a cap in place with the environment through the day today. It's sort of why we haven't seen much in the way of thunderstorm development so far. What happens is, as the sun starts to set, temperatures aloft start to cool, and so the cap falls apart naturally. And that's why we're starting to see some showers and thunderstorms that are firing up. It looks like this storm north of Grand Forks is still, just by looking at it in the presentation, running into some capping issues. It's fighting that cap. And by the way, a cap is just a layer of warm air above the surface. Temperatures like to cool as you go above the surface. And then with those thunderstorms, as they start to develop, they run into that little warm nose, that cap, and it prevents them or inhibits them from developing, which it looks like this one cell is trying to develop. It's struggling a little. It did go severe warned. Doesn't look like the National Weather Service is going to choose to extend that severe thunderstorm warning further down the line, but it's going to be along and sort of south of this cell, I think, that we're going to have to watch for additional development now through the next couple of hours. Thunderstorms will likely go up pretty quickly here as the sun continues to set, and then they may not stay severe for super long. Here's a look at the latest 0Z run of the HRRR across parts of the upper Midwest, particularly eastern North Dakota and Minnesota. HRRR does show thunderstorm development here depicted over the next couple of hours. And like I said, it may go up pretty quickly as that cap continues to weaken. And then storms may not stay strong or really altogether for that long overnight before almost completely dissipating as they head eastward into central Minnesota. So I think the near term severe weather threat is the greatest now through the next couple of hours, and then things will start to wane a little bit overnight tonight. But watching sort of these blue circled areas and even an outflow boundary or two here, especially, I should say, that outflow boundary that you see coming out towards Mayville on the Dakota side, North Dakota side, for some thunderstorm development. But things are pretty quiet other than that, really across the entire country. So most of the eyes tonight continue to be on what's happening out in the tropical Atlantic, of course, with Tropical Storm Aaron as it heads westward. Northern Leeward Islands will get some rain, some tropical storm force winds from this one, but the core will stay north of both the Northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico here over the next couple of days, which is all very good news. Let's see. Can we see when the hurricane is possible? A question about that. So right now we're pretty close to hurricane status with Aaron. Looking at the satellite here, you can see thunderstorms that continue to develop around the center of Aaron. Those deeper thunderstorm tops are signifying strengthening that's taking place with the storm. I think we're just a few miles per hour now away from getting technically to hurricane status. The 8 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center still has winds at 70 miles per hour, just shy of hurricane status, which is 74 miles per hour. Certainly by tomorrow, we'll have a hurricane on our hands as Aaron heads west-northwestward and then making more of a jog directly to the north early next week as it skirts north of the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, Haiti, the Dominican Republic. I saw another question about how Bermuda plays into all of this, and that's a great question. So here's Bermuda for some reference. I know it's kind of hard to see sometimes, such a small island, right? Here's Bermuda, and then here's the east coast of the US. The Hurricane Center cone technically doesn't go as far out as beyond Tuesday afternoon, but we can sort of infer that the track this will take is to the north still. Aaron will continue north after Tuesday. That could put Bermuda possibly at play for some impacts, including rain, wind, some tropical storm force winds, and maybe even hurricane force winds, but it's too soon to say for sure whether or not the island will be directly impacted. The most likely scenario is Aaron squeezes between both Bermuda and the east coast of the US. And so that would mean large swells from Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and then obviously Bermuda as well. So likely continuing somewhere in there. So squeezing between both Bermuda and the east coast of the US. But I would say I'd be more concerned a little bit about potential impacts to Bermuda over a place like Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina. Here are the ensemble models, and here's Bermuda. Let's circle it ahead of time so we don't get lost in the map. Here's Bermuda, tiny little island, and the data really starts to split. These ensemble members, you can see them all over the place as we get into early next week, trying to place where the center of Aaron may be. A lot of them kind of show Aaron somewhere from roughly a few hundred miles off the east coast of Florida, all the way to potentially working through Bermuda. And so there are a handful of members here that do bring the center through Bermuda. More than likely, though, it's going to stay west of there. Notice the mean line out of all those ensemble members. Each single member is a different idea of what could happen based on different environmental conditions. And then the mean of all of those, sort of the average line, like I said, passes the center of Aaron between Bermuda and the east coast of the US. So it's a win-win type situation. At least that's the way things are looking tonight. That's not to say things may not change for Bermuda here tomorrow, if we see a little bit more of an eastward shift in the track, and the windshield wiper type effect of the data is expected for the next couple of days. And that is just how it always is with tropical systems. Is it safe to travel to Puerto Rico? Can't make that decision for you, but at least in terms of major impacts tonight, it looks like things are trending in a good way for Puerto Rico. Major impacts from Aaron not likely, but a glancing blow possible, especially on the north side of the island and the northeast side of the island, where some rain and wind, a few tropical storm force wind gusts are possible heading into the weekend. But a major hurricane rolling over the center of Puerto Rico is extremely unlikely at this point. How about Rhode Island? So I would say still a ways out from getting more data about specifically how Aaron will impact the Northeast, but more than likely you're going to see little to no impacts across the Northeast there, besides maybe some bigger swells. And again, I know that's common as tropical systems pass off the coast of the Northeast during the summertime. Same thing with northern New Jersey. Right now, no impacts expected from Erin besides some bigger wave action at the beaches. I'm flying to St. Martin next week, Thursday through Charlotte. Will I be impacted? So by that point, Erin should be gone, and you shouldn't have any actual travel impacts because of the storm itself. It'll be well out to sea and hopefully weakening by that point. Will New York be impacted? Doesn't look like New York's going to be impacted by this one. So by and large, things are still trending in a pretty good way with Erin with regards to minimal impacts across the coast, the east coast of the U.S., with that strong recurvature out to sea expected. I want to show you the forecast for tomorrow. I know some of you are following me from places that don't see tropical activity, so I do want to show you tomorrow because it is all related. You know, we're looking at this trough here across parts of Canada and a surface cold front as well that extends to the south. Along that surface cold front, we're getting showers and thunderstorms firing up across the upper Midwest, particularly in eastern North Dakota, western parts of Minnesota. And this trough is going to be what kind of helps kick Erin out to sea, so to speak. But it is producing some strong thunderstorms tonight. And then tomorrow, we're expecting our area of severe weather to shift a little bit. There's a risk level 2 out of 5 for strong to severe thunderstorms that centered from roughly the Twin Cities, eastward, Eau Claire, Marshfield, into parts of Wisconsin, central Wisconsin at play for some strong to severe thunderstorms tomorrow. Large hail and damaging winds would be the primary concern. Although a brief weak spin-up tornado can't be ruled out. Here's what the data looks like. Tonight, you see showers and thunderstorms expected to fire up sometime. If they do, over the next couple of hours, doesn't look like a really big severe weather threat, but you could get some hail in some of these more isolated, discrete cells across western Minnesota, near the Fargo area. And then overnight, those showers and storms lose steam, fall apart. And then tomorrow, especially east of the Twin Cities and out towards Eau Claire, Wausau, you could get some showers and thunderstorms, and some of those could be strong before a big line of storms moves in by Saturday morning. That'll produce more heavy rain, it put down a few inches, and possibly lead to an isolated flooding threat. Somebody asked, are there 3 more behind Erin? And then Elliot before said, I'm out here in North Dakota. I can see an outflow boundary with very strong updrafts. Let's check on that. And let me turn off the day 2 outlook because I was pointing out just a few minutes ago that outflow boundary across North Dakota. We'll turn off our day 2 outlook and check out that outflow boundary exactly like you were mentioning that's closing in now on Mayville. And showers and thunderstorms that are trying to ignite, especially right along the south side of that boundary. I do think we're going to find some intense thunderstorm development over the next 30 to 45 minutes here across eastern North Dakota, getting close to the I-29 corridor. Here's Mayville. Mayville may not see any rain, but the outflow boundary is going to work through and bring some gusty winds, and showers and thunderstorms likely going to start intensifying along that outflow boundary, and they may be semi-discrete at first. We did have our 1 severe thunderstorm warning here north of Grand Forks. That one has expired. I think that storm was struggling to get going with the capping inversion in place, but obviously now here we are 8:50, the sun's completely down. Temperatures are cooling, and you have showers and thunderstorms that are really lighting up along that outflow boundary. And also, I think here between Grand Forks, Thompson, along I-29, you're going to get some thunderstorms that are going to start to pop up here over the next little bit with a near-term severe threat. Hail might be the biggest issue, up to golf ball size. Look at that. New return on this now, just in the past scan, just west of Grand Forks. So Rapid thunderstorm development likely underway now as the cap continues to weaken across eastern North Dakota, western Minnesota. So far, no active severe thunderstorm warnings, but looks like we're about to see a storm merger or cells merge, kind of come together here with a cell that is south of Warren, and that would be Warren, Minnesota. And more than likely, as these two cells merge, you're going to get some explosive development with this cell. I'd be willing to bet it probably goes severe warned again here in a few minutes. It gets up to severe criteria with likely hail being the biggest threat, followed by wind and even a brief spin up tornado as some of these boundaries kind of collide. Can't be entirely ruled out. So rapid thunderstorm development underway here across eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota. Watching one cell out near Warren right now that was previously severe warned. It was fighting off our capping inversion. That capping inversion is now starting to weaken a little bit, so you're getting the towers and the thunderstorms that are starting to go up. One spot I think I'd watch especially closely is along that outflow boundary that you see that's working from roughly northward North Dakota all the way down to Valley City. That's cool air rushing away from earlier day activity. That's what an outflow boundary is. New cells that are kind of igniting along it. It's serving as a focal point for additional cells to develop. Let's see if we have anything from the Storm Prediction Center in terms of any mesoscale discussions that have come out on this. I think now through about the next hour and a half is when we have the better chance of some of these cells becoming strong to severe, and they're probably not going to maintain a really significant severe weather risk overnight. I think they'll kind of develop and go up pretty intense here over the next few minutes and then likely collapse in on themselves after a couple of hours. Here's a new mesoscale discussion from the Storm Prediction Center here in the spots that we were just looking at across eastern North Dakota and into northern and western Minnesota. They have a 40% chance of a severe watch being issued. This would likely be a severe thunderstorm watch. And their discussion also mentions here that intensification is underway. Strong forcing for ascent associated with vigorous shortwave that is passing through the Canadian prairies. And latest rapid refresh indicates a focus area of defluent. Okay, so yeah, they're basically saying that thunderstorm development now taking place here. As temperatures start to cool aloft, we lose the cap. The forcing for this is going to come along a cold front that's moving through and then also along a couple of outflow boundaries that we're looking at. So I'll be really curious to see what happens over the next couple of minutes in terms of thunderstorm development and if we see any new severe thunderstorm warnings that start to pop up. Let's see, is that the outflow boundary that extends north-south there? Yeah, this is our outflow boundary that extends from roughly Northwood, North Dakota, down through about Valley City, North Dakota. And that outflow boundary is going to be the spot that we look for, one of the spots that we look for thunderstorm development over the next 30 to 45 minutes. A few isolated cells are possible before we start to see some more interaction likely. These cells may not stay isolated for super long as they all kind of go up at once. Sometimes that happens, by the way, when you lose a cap pretty quickly and thunderstorms develop along a boundary like that. They tend to go up all at once really quickly. They can be isolated for a short period of time and then they kind of congeal and merge together. And that sometimes lowers a severe weather threat and you don't see quite as much in the way of supercell development. But I'll tell you what storm does look ominous is this one up here. This is our main storm right now that is roughly a few miles, let's see how many miles, to the northeast here of Grand Forks. It's about 14 miles or so northeast of Grand Forks. You do have a thunderstorm that's really getting organized. This is probably putting down some heavy rain right now, especially as it interacts and starts to merge with cells to the south. And it's going to be crossing over 75 highway between Warren and Angus in the next few minutes. with heavy rain. There could be some small hail in here. You're starting to see some of the purple indicating where there could be a little hail taking place. We'll turn on the velocity for just a second, and there's even a little rotation on this cell as well. A couple of different spots of rotation, some small rotation in here. As to be expected with some of the cell mergers that are taking place and the way this is more of a dominant looking, almost supercell, you do have a few spots of some mid-level rotation that's taking place. I don't think we're close to having a tornado, but there could be a wall cloud trying to develop on this one in a few different spots. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few minutes, but there are no, at least from what I can see, any active severe thunderstorm warnings anywhere in the country right now, which is good news. All right, I think we'll wrap the live up here for tonight. We talked to Aaron, we talked to our severe weather threat. I want to thank everybody for joining, for watching. I appreciate all your comments and for tuning in. If you have any questions that I didn't get to, feel free to shoot me a DM and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow, Friday, and this weekend with more lives as we track Aaron approaching, again, possibly Puerto Rico, bringing in some rainfall there, but